Welcome to YIY Soul Conversations. I'm Libby, and this is my very good friend, Cameron Allen.
Hey, what's up, good people?
And so, Cameron is an astrologer, herbalist, Libby Yoga ambassador, and advisor to so many. So, welcome, Cameron.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So one of the things that, one of the reasons why I was inspired and just looking forward to sharing you with everybody is because I just know who you are to like so many people, and your ability just to be present for people, what inspires me the most is your sense of being and your spirituality. And so, thank you for agreeing to be my guest.
Yeah.
And you have this ability to just be honest. You're very forthcoming, no matter the situation. And I'm curious what led you to this place of honesty.
Got you, yeah. So, honestly, not being honest led me to being honest, Like, just the little, not necessarily always lies, just like the little not full truths that I didn't tell, and like how that would affect people around me that I love, and how it would affect me, So I feel like I go through, in my life, I always go through these trial and error processes, and yeah, I like mess up to everybody else, but really what I'm doing is like cultivating and understanding and learning like what I need for myself, and we were even talking about it earlier, like with how people want certain things from you, or like, just thinking about expectations and projections, and it's like, I don't want to let this person down, so I would be dishonest to try not to let that person down, and then whether they found out or not, right? Like, I still feel let down because my lack of integrity and honesty. So the more and more that I've engaged with that, and then seeing what it does to other people, it's like that has led me to be as honest as possible. And even when I'm being honest, like, other people might reflect to me like, I don't think you're telling, like, and I'm like, oh, like, well, if I'm not telling the truth, I might not be aware of that.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, that's one thing that I can say in the past. It's been almost a year, because I didn't tell a full truth, like, last year. It was, like, maybe in December. Yeah, and that one hit me really hard.
That's how honest you are, that you can fast forward back to when you weren't honest.
Yeah, and that one really hit me. So, I just, since then, I was just like, because it's like fear. It's usually fear, fear of abandonment, fear of losing something that you feel like you have to have. And I'm just like, I don't want to play that game anymore. So, yeah, that's why I'm honest. And that's how I am honest and have cultivated it. And, maybe I'm not honest 1,000% of the time to myself fully, but I allow myself to tell the truth that I feel in my experience in the present moment, and then let everything else come later. Because, yeah, like I tell everybody, we're all progressing, and, it's a process. So we can't always just, like, persecute ourselves or judge ourselves, or, like, that stuff's just a waste, Shame, guilt, blame, judgment, all those things, they tend towards, like, we just leak our energy out, and it's just not helpful all the way. So, yeah, that's why I try to be so honest.
Yeah. I learned, it was a couple of years ago, and I know you and I, so as I'm saying is, almost every conversation we have is a soul conversation.
Definitely.
like Kimber and I never have any bland, just casual conversations. So I'm excited to be recording this one. But we talked about it a couple of years ago. I went through like a traumatic. To me, it felt like it was like my rock bottom, and it was all due to me not being honest. And so I know for me, that's when I started, becoming into more of a space of being honest and allowing myself to speak my truth, not all based a lot of time over fear of rejection. And but the interesting thing is, what I personally learned is that when I started being honest, I started feeling more free, but then being more accepted by people.
Right. Yeah, it's such a weird catch-22 type of thing, and it always makes me think about like the spiritual ideas or the spiritual. I consider my spiritual belief that I have been having to surrender to. Is like when you change your vibration, your frequency, blah blah, like where things are coming from, right, and everything reflecting it back to you. It's just like when people accept themselves, people just accept them more. You know, it's just, and I guess that doesn't always happen immediately, but overall, you know, it tends to happen. I've seen it happen so many times. It's something I had to surrender to. I feel like,
and I think the relationships that, you know, maybe when you're not being accepted, those are the relationships that didn't serve you anyway. You know what I mean? Like, those are the ones that you should have parted with for whatever reason, and you didn't. But you know, like you are, like I said, you know, you're an astrologer, and you connect with so many people, and you're an advisor. And I know we kind of talked about it earlier as well, but like, do you feel that pressure to be present for people and show up for people? And I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it. And if you don't feel the pressure, when did you stop feeling that pressure?
Well, the pressure comes and goes, you know, moment to moment type of thing. What I can say is that I realized pretty soon in my practice that if I didn't stay contained in my own energy, then I would not be able to sustainably help as many people as I could throughout my whole life. And pressure is a part of that, you know, like feeling other people's pressure is like it does something to us, right? It's like I always, and I had meditations too, and it's like literally sometimes I would think about pressure. I would really think about not just pressure, but specifically, and I forget what order it was when I was like really into it, but it's like reflection, suppression, repression, repression, depression. And I was just thinking about like that spectrum and like, where am I at with it? Like somebody says something to me or people think that I should do this. Am I reflecting? Because reflecting is cool. Totally. Like I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me keep it moving. But if I'm reflecting and then like, oh, they said I shouldn't do it, then I start suppressing and feeling oppressed, and then I'm repressed, and then it'll make me depressed. So like, so that just cultivating a relationship with that idea or that thought, you know, and that goes with Capricorn in astrology, and I have 6 planets in Capricorn. So it's a lot about like the conditioning and what shoulds and supposed to be's, you know. And I know like and astrology helped me so much with that, because people tend to think like Capricorns are rigid, you know, and they can be. But, you know, I like to try to dismantle that in a certain type of way, because it doesn't have to be that way, you know. And even like a lot of times we feel pressure because we think we have somewhere we need to go or somewhere we need to be, instead of just being in our own like authority. And you know, and having patience as well. That sometimes that's all pressure is. It's like, oh, I told myself I was gonna have my website done in 2 months, and then, I didn't get it done. You know, but it's like, literally, like, if it's just like, oh well, I'm gonna do it 2 months after that. Okay, cool. Like, there's no pressure there. You know, so I don't know when, but I can say it was at EBO for sure. Working at EBO, because there's a lot of different projections and pressure from the outside world for you to be something or be a certain, like, even just as far as like, if somebody like calls you a healer, and somebody sends them to you, and I say a curse word, it's just the simplest things, you know. Or if, God forbid, Cameron had a bad day, right? Like, the pressure
like,
of like,
I'm human.
Right, exactly. Like the pressure of literally just people projecting perfection or projecting that I'm gonna do what I did last week, you know. That stuff, just like, I had to let it go, because if that was the case, then, you know, I could have been crushed under that pressure, honestly. But like the thing, oh, pressure makes diamonds, or it makes blah blah. Like, so I like to look at it that way too.
Yeah,
It's like,
I would say recently, I know, especially with all that's been going on, it's the way that I've been getting through is just saying like, all right, this is like a growing pain.
yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah. And I've definitely experienced high contrast in 2020. I've felt more spacious, but I also have been doing the live the yoga, where it's like literally all about decompression, and even thinking about it with like talking with Monica about it, it's just like, how much space do we take up, right? And like holding space, and just the idea of what is space in my life. And you don't feel pressure when you have space, right? When you can hold space, the pressure eases. When you create space, there is, it's just like that idea, and specifically putting like boundaries, space, and then thinking of pressure, like all those things to me, like I was saying, they're Capricorn. So if all those things are in my head.
hey guys, so we're back. So we had some technical issues. The had too much storage on the iPad, so we had to adjust a few things, and now we're back. So welcome back to YIY Soul Conversations. When we cut off, I was asking you, Cam, about creating space and decompression. Pick up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember where I left off because I was ranting, as you all heard. But I know I was talking about, decompression and space, and how understanding the relationship between like boundaries and space, and that's what creates pressure if you don't have space, because the boundaries are collapsing in on you. So that's really important. And the first thing I always like to do, even thinking about this year, I've been thinking about like, essential needs. Everybody talk about essential needs, and it's like the first essential need in my reality is the breath, right? Mm-hmm. And just knowing if I just take a deep breath and like literally just doing that creates more space and eases pressure. So it's like just doing that, and then I always invite people. I'm like, do that, and then go to the grocery store and then do that, and then go have a hard conversation and do that, and then whatever, go into every circumstance and situation and just breathe that space, and that's like the prelude to whatever else you could come up with that's creative for you. What would create space for you? Would it be in a conversation where you're tense, like, do you want to move your body so that you don't feel the pressure of that situation? Or it could just be you acknowledging that you feel pressure, and being like, wow, like this is it kind of got me there a little bit, and creating that space so we can ease the pressure, So just building a relationship with pressure or lack thereof. And what does that look like for me, and what does it look like for you and for everybody listening now,
In my classes, quite often I tell students to like tune into your body and notice where you feel, right? And then breathe into those spaces and welcome that movement, right? Because we're all different, like I can't pressure and this tightness and tension is going to lie in different parts of our body. So I love how you said, like you got to welcome that breath, welcome that movement, really tune into your intuition and learning and connecting with yourself. And I think we tend to always look for people to tell us. To tell us what to feel, to tell us how we should be feeling, to tell you how you shouldn't be feeling, what you should do, what you shouldn't do.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like what created the pressure.
Yeah.
So, because when we were kids, it's like, what are we about to do? Oh, I don't know, let's make it up. Let's play. Haha. Oh, it's like, I mean, but even then, right, like somebody's like, you broke the rules, you shouldn't have did that. And most of the time kids are like, whatever, I don't care. Like,
it's just like, whatever.
Right.
And then you just go on to the next. You're
1,000%.
not holding on to things and all that extra that we unnecessarily do.
Yeah. So, even to throw a little more out there, even when people like tend towards trying to, like, even if they're not consciously trying to put pressure on me, I like, especially because a lot of people will get upset because the way I work with boundaries is just a certain type of way, and a lot of people aren't used to it, so it's just how it goes. But I just tell people, like, because I think of being a child and like play and stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. You can go play somewhere else, or like I don't want to play that, like, so I know we're playing.
Yeah.
We've always been doing this.
Yeah.
We've always been playing.
Now it's this game.
Right, exactly. But it's like, but how do I want to play?
Yeah.
And like, how do I want to like be in a relationship with other people based off how they play?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm just like, yeah, you can go play with yourself. I'm not gonna play. I'm just gonna play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so talking about playing, I love your relationship with nature. What is nature to you?
You know, sometimes I just, where I'm at right now too, it's like, I have opinions and I feel like I've been trying to drop as many beliefs as I can. But from my reflections in this reality, it's the closest thing that we can taste, touch, feel, experience with our senses that represents the universe or God or source, you know. And there's other ways to access that aren't necessarily in the physical senses. But I have gotten to a space where I deeply honor the senses, you know. And allowing those to teach me what is life and what is reality, whereas sometimes spirituality can be like going all the way away from those things. You know, it's all in moderation or what's based off what's appropriate, right? And that's something that I was always taught, like, you know, knowing when and what time to do things, even though I use my own context for it. Like, it still just has given me an orientation to look at life through. So yeah, I think nature just reflects back to me God or the essence or something that feels closer to the truth than man-made conditioning.
Yeah.
Like, there is something that's all pervasive that just is. And we can tap into that, you know, things get easier. Because I do have a belief that understanding breeds peace. You know, and I understanding breeds peace. Yeah, and I don't mean like I differentiate, like, somebody can get it, and then it might not necessarily breed peace, but understanding breeds peace. You know, or some people say understanding, whatever. You know, understanding, overstanding, understanding. You know, they're all the same things to me.
It's just a play on words.
Yeah, it's a play on words, and I get it, and that's cool, and that's dope, and that's lit. But I mean, they're all the same things to me. Or I'm inviting everybody to just, like, no matter which one you use, like, understand what's actually being said. You know?
Yeah. And so, how do you play in nature?
I think of, like, it makes me think of like a cat. Like, so I go to animals first. That's what I really, plants, animals. I watch them. And then I watch how they do things, you know. So the cat, cats literally sometimes just sit there and they're just like looking at stuff. And I'm always like, what are they looking at? I'm like, what are they looking at? So, like, even when you just said that, my eyes directly went to the water.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
we have a beautiful view of the water.
And I'm just like, look at the sparkles and like where it's coming and where it's going. And I'm like, that's a dance. That's play.
Yeah.
Like, how can I do that? How can I like just like sprinkle my like light and shine in this way and that way, and also understanding that like the play of it all too is like there's some spots right now that the sun is hitting that will shine, and then later on that same spot won't shine.
Yeah.
And that's based off of like perspective, right? That's something that nature can show me. It's like, well, when the light is shining this way, somebody might be like, oh, Cameron, you did this. But then, like, when it's high noon and it's shining directly on it, and people are like, oh, you're so sparkly. Like, you know, and so since I know that, I don't have to get excessively self-inflated when somebody tells me I'm sparkly. And I don't have to be deflated when somebody tells me I'm dull.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just perspective.
Yeah.
And then also in nature, especially because we're getting closer to the fall season. Well, actually, we are in fall now. And then we'll go into winter. Thinking about that, like the reflection of what is the environment and how is that informing my reality. So with the environment, if it's wintertime, it's cold, and the energy of Earth, from my lens, I say it's depressed. And it's depressed because depressed is opposite of excitation. Like, everything's not like, oh, you know, in the spring and the summer, everything's moving and like everything's alive, right?
Yeah.
But in the wintertime, it's like, right, it's dead, it's depressed, it's slow, it could be stagnant, you know. But it also could just be, and I always say depressed, and it's like deep rest. Like, you know, which sometimes you need one, sometimes you need to get more moving, you know. But just the idea of like I haven't been productive. I'm like, it's the middle of the wintertime and it's been snowing for 3 days.
Yeah.
Go to sleep. Be productive in that way. Like that orientation that we have, like I'm saying, like the man-made things, it just distorts our reality.
Yeah.
So now we have this thing called SAD, seasonal affective disorder, SAD, right? It's like, yeah, well, your energy's going down and then that makes you not feel like super amped up and bubbly all the time, but who said we were supposed to be that way anyway all the time?
Yeah.
Like,
It's not natural.
It's not. I don't think so. Yeah.
It's not natural.
And the sun gives us that like vitality too, and like when it's not out as much, then it's literally like your vitality is going to go down. Period. No matter if you know what you're doing, no matter if you're Ayurvedically eating and you know you're bringing in things that are bringing in warmth. That's cool and it's totally fine, and that can definitely keep your life force up. But the sun is just like so vital.
And we are connected to nature. So
1,000%.
as nature is shifting during these stages, we are as well. So it's like at that point, you need that rest. I think you and I was talking about it once when it was just like, it's when I was still at the court, so working at juvenile court, and you was like, well, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm fine, but I'm not really like productive. Like I'm not. And then after we talked, it was like, well, I'm not supposed to be. Like I'm going through so many other things right now. I am being productive, just not on this particular thing, but I don't have to be.
Right.
And I think it's like when you were saying earlier, it's like we put these ideals onto ourselves that I should be doing this, or I'm supposed to be doing this, and it's like, or I had this deadline and I didn't make this thing, and it's like, is the world really gonna come to an end right now if this doesn't happen at this point?
Right.
Why are you putting this extra stress? And we wonder why everybody is dealing with anxiety.
Right. Because the thing is, people are experiencing it like the world's gonna end.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I didn't turn in my article, so now I'm gonna act like a saber-toothed tiger is chasing me.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, it's just, I always use that example, or it's even just watching the news, or it could be anything. Like, that
I
saber-tooth tiger
can't
thing.
because it gets so heavy.
Yeah.
And then even as an empath or just, an energy worker or what have you, you already have these connections with people. And so if it's on this mass level, you're just pouring it on in.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Which will go back to the pressure and the boundaries and the space. And it's super important to remember. Yeah. And also, it's just like the generations before us didn't necessarily teach us that, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe some people did, but not most, right? We're in a new phase of trying to learn what boundaries really are, trying to learn what is actually healthy, and it's all new. It seems like everything is just being birthed new right now. So.
But what I love just to witness from you as a friend, it feels as though, you have a God, right? And you do, not to say that, of course you're human and you experience things, but you have this quality and this ability, and I think it is because of your spirituality and just because of your practice that you learn quick. I'm letting this go. You know what I mean? Like I'm not. No, you take your stuff. Don't project your stuff onto me.
Yeah.
Like I got my own stuff I need to deal with. But even the way that you deal with it, you have this grace. So even if on the inside you're fragile, it's this grace. And I'm like, I want some of that grace. I need some of that grace, Cameron. And then it's just, but I see, and while, this conversation about nature is because it seems like you pour into those spaces through your meditation, through your practice, through your pranayama, your breathing exercises, if anyone doesn't know what pranayama is, and you do it so well, and I think that's why you're able to really be a holder of space for so many other people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah. And just looking at nature for I know there was one year in my life where I was taking these these like alchemically prepared plant medicine, and every month I was taking a different one, and every month I was just out in nature, and every month I was literally just watching and listening and having what I thought I knew ripped off of me as well, which was definitely painful, but also was just so freeing, you know. Just even thinking about how I was literally over there listening, like watching the buffalo, and there was this one buffalo, he was swinging his tail, or it was swinging his tail, I don't know, gender thing, anyway. So like, it was swinging his tail, and I was just like, oh, like what would that sound like on my flute, right? And it's just like, it's like, that wasn't it. It's like, and I'm like, oh, that was kind of, and then it like slowed, but then it felt like it like heard me, and it like slowed down, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, okay.
You
so
have this Jungian,
yeah, yeah, totally. So it's like, yeah, just playing with nature and letting nature show me that things are okay and fine. You know, even sometimes too, like even right now. Not to say things aren't like getting pretty crucial here on the planet. You know, it's like I have received messages personally that I like have to share. It's just that, you know, sometimes when things would get heavy and intense, especially when I was working with so many people, it was like I would meditate and it would be like, and whatever it is, God, angel guide, spirit, my ancestors, you know, whatever it was when I didn't know what it was, you know, it would be like, do you cry when the leaves fall off the trees? And I was just like, no, I don't. Because that's that part where, like, that's the part of the cycle that, like, things are falling off, things are dying off, you know? And it's actually making way for what's coming next, you know? So that's just really,
that.
It's really, really important to remember that, you know? And I'm inviting everybody, I say, understand that from a perspective of nature and not a perspective of, like, oh, this doesn't mean anything. It's just the leaves falling off the trees. No, it's not just that, right? It is that, and also grieving is occurring, suffering is occurring, so we have to stay mindful of that too as well, right? We have, not have to, I don't like have to. I invite everybody to look at it as a spectrum, right? Sometimes I do see it as just the leaves falling off the trees. On Wednesday, I might feel that way. Friday, I'm crying because somebody's in pain or something, right? So it's like, keeping those things in a dynamic, flowing state is just, it's important.
You know, I love, so if you don't follow Cameron, please follow Cameron on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is @CADream6. CADream6.
And so I love when you share so you're also a poet. I didn't say that, right? I love when you share your poetry. And because I personally know you, when I read it, I hear your tone, like flowing with it. And like typically when you write, I feel when I read it, I feel like you had this deep meditation, or you had a personal encounter with nature, and then you write. Mm-hmm. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's usually very spontaneous. Even if the spontaneous is, I'm gonna sit down and reflect and meditate on what is the full moon, right? Because I don't write every new moon, every full moon. I don't do that, right? It's like, but I do reflect on like what is new moon, what is the quarter square, what is the blah blah, whatever. And if something just comes through, then I'm like, sometimes it just comes through, and I'm just like, well, I'm gonna offer this as a reflection for everybody, you know. And a lot of times it is inquiry. You know, it'll have poetry in it, but it's like, it's questions. Like, it's never, not never, but oftentimes it's not like this concrete thing that I'm like, I have this truth and I know it now. It's like, like, is it this or is it that? And like, what's really going on here, you know?
And it's always so honest. Right?
Definitely.
It's never polished. It's just as it is. And I know how people that may struggle with their own ability to be honest, how that may be like, but for the most part, from what I see within our community, it's so welcome and appreciated. You know, do you ever have anyone, particularly like with your poetry, that may be like, why you say this, or was this about me, or like any person?
Oh yeah. All the time. I'm like, especially because a lot of times I'm meditating, you know, on self, capital S self, lowercase self. So
Explain that. Capital S self, lowercase self.
So I have this like, and I say it in different ways, you know, being like selfish and trying to recontextualize what is selfish, you know, or be self-full, or however somebody wants to say it, but it's like breathing into all spaces that is me, so I'm full of myself, but then also that connects me to a larger self, you know, and also the context of, and I say capital S self first, because it's like, it's the larger, right, and that is me, and like where do I really stop and something else begins on that level, and also I'm still Cameron and I'm separate in some way, like both of those things can coexist in my reality, so that paradox doesn't need to be like, well, really we're all one, but really, like, you know, that whole thing, you know, I don't even know what the question was anymore. I just answered. What was I supposed to answer? Oh yeah, capital S self. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's just like my context to me has to do with like, what is reality? How is that coming through me from this lens of Cameron? And I'm going to be selfish because it's in the context of the whole, and that's why I'm doing exactly what I want and need to do in that moment, what I feel.
And it has nothing to do, because, you know, I was asking, like, do you have people that come to you that's like, hey, what you talking about me? But it's like, this had nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta deal with your own stuff because you felt like this had to do with
Right.
you.
And sometimes I'm like,
did it?
Maybe it did. And also, I have been reflecting on this for 2 months. And also, it's the Virgo full moon. So you being critical of me last week just went with the energy that is occurring right now, you know, or whatever it is. It's like, maybe so. Yeah, it's like, maybe it did happen. Like, so sometimes I tell people maybe. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I reflected on it, and yeah, it was like it had something to do with you. It did. Like, you were a part of that.
Yeah. But if you read it and felt like it had something to do with you, you knew it had something to do with you.
Oh yeah. It's just a mirror. It's a reflection, you know? And that's all it is when I'm doing it, right? I'm meditating, I'm reflecting on my experience and my reality. Does that have something to do with you? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. It's like, I feel like oftentimes, but what I can say is I never press the button thinking of a person, right? That's one thing I can say. So it's not, like, it's never about them in a way that I, like, write that post for them, you know? So that's one thing I can say, because the only time I recognize it actually is when people reflect it to me. They're like, is this about them? And I'm like, wait, I was about to say no. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Like, kind of.
But you know what? I think, because I am a true believer in, typically, it's like, if you take something personal, that's just work that you need to work on.
1,000%.
And if, you know, like, I post something, and if you read it, and if you take it personal, it's like, yeah, because you do need to work on that. That's why you took it personal.
Totally.
And now that you bring it to my attention, I'm diving into that space that we were in however long ago, and I'm like, well, yeah, this could relate to that, but this isn't because of you.
Right.
This is just a space that I'm within.
Right,
Yeah.
And, you know, I even thinking about selfishness, you know, the way I look at it is very interesting, because I almost never look at somebody else's post and think that it's about me.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why would it be about me?
Yeah.
In some cases, of course, it's like, sometimes it can be obvious, you know? Like, if you're in a partnership and somebody posts something after, like, I'll have a fight, then yeah, totally, that was about me, cool. And also, thank you for that reflection.
Yeah.
Because it's actually about you reflecting how you see me. You know, so it's not all about me, even in that case.
Yeah.
So I've just learned to get over myself in that way, you know? And I think that a lot of people they're not over their self in that way.
But that also goes back to you when you was explaining, I believe, I don't know which book it was. Was it the 10? Anyway, I don't remember the name of the book. But it goes, it's
the 4 laws thingy?
Yeah.
The 4 agreements.
Yeah.
Totally.
In the agreements, it's the same as when you were, when you get the analogy of the water and the reflection and that perspective. It's like, even when someone gives you a compliment, that's really a reflection of them. They're seeing something within you that resonates within them. And so it's that mirror, right? And so it's that same concept, right? That it's like, even if you give me a compliment, thank you, you know, but this is also honoring yourself, you know, like what you're saying. This is, so like, we always think that things are about us, and it's like, no, it's really about you. It's not about me.
Right.
But it's kind of a hard concept to swallow if, you know, you think about the norms and just the way society looks at things. But when you said that, I thought about it. So just now you said it again. I'm like, yeah, that's really what it is.
Yeah, definitely. And yes, and I've even come to a point to dissolve the paradox, and it's like, yeah, it's about me reflecting, and then, yeah, it's about you. So what?
Yeah.
Like, and when you said that thing, that was, and I'm like, that was about you. I know my part in it. Cool. Or I'm going to reflect myself and see my part in it.
Yeah.
And also that was about you, even if it was about me. It can be both, and that's totally fine. You know, it's just like, am I putting that responsibility on somebody else, or somebody else putting that responsibility on me, and not seeing it both ways? It's just like, yeah, it's problematic a lot of times.
Yeah, like, that's really where the issue lies within relationships, and all of that. Oh, so Cameron, you got a lot going on right now. A lot of good stuff going on. You want to share with everybody all this good stuff you have going on?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so right now I'm working with Yoga Journal on the Live the Yoga tour, and that's been really nice because, yeah, the theme is just all about decompression, and in the space and time that we're in, we need decompression, and we need stillness, and we need rest, and all those things are super important, you know. And they also have allowed me to have space and time to reflect on all the things that I've been through over the past few years working at EBO.
What's ELBO? You mentioned ELBO before.
Yeah,
people that don't know.
Yeah, for people that don't know, EBO is a spiritual supply shop at 1331 Madison Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee. Yeah, that's where I worked at for multiple years, and that's where I got into my practice of astrology and my practice of herbalism, and just honestly, just like being like on the ground with the people, like trial and error experience, just like learning through the patterns, and it was so beautiful because just I learned my practice primarily through my clients, and the people that will come to me were mostly black women. So it's like my experience is based in that. So sometimes it's interesting to see, like, when I first started taking my astrology out into the world, and people being like, "What do you mean this means that?" And I'm like, "Wait, like, this is what I'm like. I know it means this, right?" Like, but they'd be like, "Well, actually, it means this," and I'm like. And I would like start kind of like, oh, okay, I kind of see it. But then I was like, wait, no, like I have been informed by the community that I serve. Yeah. And that actually needs to be brought in. Yeah. Right? Anyway, I'm not gonna go on a tangent there. So I have Live the Yoga tour going on. And then I was in Oakland doing like content for Yoga Journal and Live the Yoga tour. And I made a whole course while I was there. It's called The Health Secrets of the Zodiac. I did it with this company, Astrology Hub, and that was really exciting. I just like.
And the link is in your bio.
The link is in my bio, and I don't think it's open for enrollment right now. Again, okay. It's going to be open again soon. Okay. Yeah, and make sure you click the link that I give because that supports me more. So thank you for that.
And we want to support Cameron.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a great experience. I really, really, really appreciate Astrology Hub and all the space that they held for me, and the co-creation process was just seamless, and yeah, it was a great experience. And I'm also in their Inner Guide program too as well. Every year, they have a different astrologer every month go through the lunation cycles, and they invited me to do that this year, and that was really fun. And I'm going to do it again next year, and hopefully I'll do it with them for a long time to come. Because I like that relationship I have with them. They hold.
Is that the one when you did the reading on Aquarius?
That's EA Zoom meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can find me at EA Zoom meetings too. If you type in EA Zoom and then Cameron Allen in YouTube, I just have like a bunch of free lectures that I give for a group of evolutionary astrologers is what it's called. That's why the E and the A. And yeah, it's just so much content. Someone named Linda Johnson, she just, wow, she's amazing in the way that she organized this.
And where is she out of?
I don't remember, but she's overseas though.
Europe somewhere,
she's
right?
she's overseas. Yeah. She's just an amazing organizer, and she just has poured so much into the community, and there's just so much content. Like, man, like, wow, yeah, she's epic in that way. Yeah, so that's another thing I've been doing, because I just did one the other day. It was yesterday. I did it yesterday. Or maybe it was 2 days ago. It was 2 days ago. Yeah. So that was fun, and it's always fun doing stuff with that group to like create content with just a lot of astrologers who are trying to put it out there and make it accessible, which is really important these days.
What if someone is interested in, because you're a herbalist as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're not at Evo anymore.
Not currently. I might be back sooner or later. But
how would that work?
Yeah, so people can reach me on my Instagram at cadream6. They can email me at cadreamplanet@gmail.com. And my website will be up before the new year.
Okay.
Oh, and that's another thing. I've begun writing articles for Yoga Journal. So that's been fun, and next year.
So if you haven't connected, or if you're not familiar with Cameron's work, it's always on point. And so if you're ever in a space, sorry to interrupt you, like if you're ever in a space, well, I know personally with myself and even friends of mine within our community, or just reading like Cameron's posts, it always resonates. And what I love is definitely when you did Leo, I was like, yes, that is like so on point. And then recently, you did the Virgo one.
I think I did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did something
Libra.
in Virgo, and I did something in Libra too. Yeah.
Yes. So just tap in, and those are just on his page, his IG page. But then his articles, the work that he's done. I know in the past, I read some work that you've done with Yoga Journal, and it's just always on point. And Cameron is always available. It's one of the things I'm like, Cameron, how are you available for all these people? Like, and it's like, nah, it's cool. I got it. I'm meditating. I'm good.
Yeah.
And but he's truly available and present. And like I said, we've never had, and I love like real conversations. We never had a false conversation. We never had a casual conversation. We could sit for hours and talk, and it's like, wait, where did the time go?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, we've been through a few little portals there, little warps.
Yeah. And it's
so
like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons why I asked Cameron about honesty is because if he does, if you entrust Cameron to do an astrology reading, it's going to always be on point. And it may not be exactly what you want to hear at the time, but it may be what you need to hear at that time. Like I think it was like our first reading, and you had asked me, and I know you talked to so many people, so I don't know if you remember this, but like you asked me if I ever went through any type of like sexual trauma or something, and at the time I was like, no, I don't really think so. And then you was like piercing into me like, nah, Trick, you've been through something. Like, you've been through something. And then it was something that I buried and I forgot. And sometime recently, before we had our session, it had came to me. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about this. And it was like I was sexually assaulted twice when I was young, but I made myself forget about it. But I mean, and not to say that everybody's reading is going to be, like my reading, but it's always impactful, because different. We all have something going on. We all have things that we store inside, or we all have things, like you said earlier, that we sometimes lie to ourselves about.
Totally.
And you point those things out. Not only for me, but even other people, as we talked about, that I have encountered, was like, yeah, Cameron asked me, why do I do this? And then you're like, man, you ain't supposed to know that. You ain't supposed to see that. So that's one of the things I love about you, your realness and your honesty. And I invite all of you to just tap into those spaces. Connect with Cameron. Tune in. Follow Cameron and all that he has to offer, because it's truly a lot. Like you're definitely an old soul. Yeah. You've been here several times. Yeah. Amazingly wise.
Thank you.
Amazingly wise.
I would say something about the readings too, because it's been interesting. When I first got into doing readings, I actually was learning from somebody who worked with specifically with signatures of trauma, or when the parts of ourselves that we fragment from. And I know I just thinking about even the word ego comes up, where I didn't know how to say such things necessarily, because I do have a trauma-informed background, working with people at youth villages before I did astrology. And I realized I had to let go of my ego to be able to say the things that were just literally coming through me.
Yeah.
And that was something that was really profound, 'cause I was always looking at ego as me thinking I'm too good or blah, blah, but there's a lot of things that we do and we hold back because we want to feel comfortable in a certain type of way. And not to say don't have discernment, because it's important to have discernment. Of course I'm not going to say these shaking things to everybody all the time, It's but learning to have discernment and learning when something's coming through you and to you for somebody else, and when you have to get out of the way is just super, super important. So yeah, and it's interesting because my sessions have gotten more flowy, and that they're still just as impactful, but they don't have to be explode. So it's that refinement over time, People still experience it that way, actually.
Yeah.
Actually,
I'm wait a second. For you,
I'm wait.
Yeah, for you,
I say
it's flowy,
yeah.
but to that person,
That's
it's
true, that's true.
Wait. And
That's so funny. Yeah.
But at the time, it's not oh my God.
Yeah.
It's really freeing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know for me, it was very freeing to be it didn't make me, I didn't feel any embarrassment. It didn't make, it was just you bring these, you help, personally for me, reflect. And then we can talk about those things, and then we dive into them. And then it's just okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or even talking about the ego, I learned that the ego isn't just, look at me shine, it's also that part of you that's oh no, I'm shy, or oh no, I can't do this. It's your ego, because you're not doing it because you think somebody's better than you. Mm-hmm. Or you think you know what I mean? Like you're putting yourself down because that's your ego saying, nah, you ain't good enough, you're going to be embarrassed, instead of just allowing yourself to be free. Totally. And so I think even during our process in our relationship, it's developed in this way that you have this sense of comfort, right? It's just nah, this is me. It's it's never a time. I remember one time it was something, and I was like, man, I don't want to bother you. And it's man, if you're thinking, just call me and we'll work through it. If I can't talk about this at this time, we'll pick up, but it's okay. And I think in our minds we have this thing where we think because we're afraid of some sense of rejection or someone looking down or all these other things, we restrict ourselves unnecessarily.
Totally.
But you're not the average Joe, right?
Yeah, not in that way.
You're not playing those games. And so I think that's nice for people to know, because you do hold space for people, and I think it's important, for me, I feel like, to share that to anyone that's curious, or that wants to reach out, that feels as though they're going to be judged, or it feels as though it's going to be like, what the hell? That's not what you get here.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like you're truly open and true. You know, like it is like you have people that talk the talk, but they don't walk the talk, walk the walk.
Yeah.
Right? But that's not the case here. You
Yeah,
know,
I do feel
very forthcoming.
Yeah, I do feel like I've been really integral and in alignment for a while, and that's always being cultivated still. And yeah, judgment, you know, I even usually invite people to reframe it sometimes, you know, it's just like thinking of judgment as not just like, I think you're good or bad, but it's like, I tell people this is the way I judge. It's not a value judgment, it's just like, I look both ways before I cross the street, and then I see that car is like really close, so I'm not gonna walk out. So if you tell me something about yourself, and I reflect back to you that you shouldn't walk out, or like, it's like, are you sure you want to walk out? Because it looks like that car is close, even if, like in a relational circumstance or a different circumstance in your life, you know? So just, yeah, since I reframe my perspective on judgment like that, it's just like, really judgment, you can even say the word discernment, or maybe even like understanding, mastery, you know, all those things to me feel more true than like value judgments.
Yeah.
Because yeah, the only reason I would quote unquote judge myself is to gain mastery over something, not to say I'm not good enough, which that's the context that we have been spoon-fed for a really long time.
Yeah.
So it's just good to get out of that state of mind, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
Do you have a closing offering for us?
Yeah. I'm just gonna look at the water. That's what I'm doing. I'm just gonna look at the water and just play my flute for a second, I guess. Yeah. And I still haven't even learned what any of the notes are. I've literally just all play.
It's a really nice flute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
I want to thank all of you for joining us and sharing space with us as we send love and gratitude to all of you.
Peace.
See you next time.